Rakdos Scam is it is a cut above any deck I've seen in Modern in years. Um, I think it is an uninspired deck. I will say that. With that being said, it's along the lines of things that I like in decks, like very aggressive, very like heavy swinging decks. But what I don't like about it is a very uninspired. There's not necessarily like a gimmick to it per se, beyond like the evoke creatures coming out of the graveyard, devastating the board state of your opponent, which isn't so good sometimes. And then when you have things like Grief, which I like the card Grief, and I'm waiting to see what happens with Grief because I want to buy some, because I'm working on a mono black deck that I really want to incorporate Grief in. But that being said, like throwing Bowmaster's Grief, Ragavan, Dragon's Rage, or the Seasoned Pyromancer, Fury. You take like the best cards in the colors of the format and then throw them together. They have an interesting interaction with each other, but high and above, like anybody, a fool just coming into the game could see that this deck is overpowered. It almost can only deal with itself. As I said, I'm mostly against it. I play my Boros Burn or a Gruul Prowess. And honestly, the Gruul Prowess is steamrolled pretty handily. Throstavan is steamrolled. Where Throstavan really is a pretty good swinging deck that holds its own. And like against like thing like Murktide and stuff, my Throstavan deck is very very effective against those, but not so much. I cannot even get a board state against Rakdos Scam with Throstavan. However, what is it? The Boros Burn, just burning out the opponent is not the worst thing. But it's like when I play Boros Burn, which is a deck that I have, like if I want to just win, I will play Boros Burn. Which is pretty much like metagame Boros Burn, but it is like I'm using cards that are specific to my area and games I come up against, which are going to be like artifact heavy and like things that require like an exile. And it's a little bit different. I don't run Eidolon of the Revel because I think that card's no good anymore, unfortunately. Similarly to, what was it? Not Mayhem Devil. Mayhem Devil's good. Vexing Devil. If anybody's familiar, Vexing Devil is a card I used to run in aggro, or mono red burn. Vexing Devil would enter the battlefield. I want to say it was a 4/3, and an opponent could have it deal 4 damage to him or her, or basically like this big creature for 1 mana is on the board. Well, it's it dies to removal and 4 life. It just the game's changed. And Boros doesn't change too much. The Boros Burn deck does not change too much. It's very consistent and has been one of the most consistent decks throughout the history of Magic. And when you play a deck like that against Rakdos Scam, and it's just like, oh my god, like that deck is like putting a burn deck to the test. So you're like, remove, like, oh my god, it bounced back. Like you're taking spells from me. So I have a few card draw spells in my Boros deck just to deal with, so you don't burn out, so you can burn them out, because there's so much grief and fury coming from the Rakdos Scam deck. You guys like this? What I got going on here, all this stuff? I surrounded myself with things because I saw guys that have way better channels with me, like had a bunch of stuff around. So I was like, I'm gonna take some of my stuff, some of my deeks. What I did, as you can see, my friends, I've surrounded myself with decks. I've got all my modern decks. I've got some commander decks, all types of decks. So, that being said, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, Rakdos Scam. Um, let's see here. Let me pop this up. Give me some food for thought here. I'm hungry for thoughts. So here we go. We'll check out the Pascal Maynard deck. Yeah, we've got Ragavan, Dowtai. So even like with a burn deck, like Ragavan's such a problem because he can burn you with your own burn deck. Similarly, Dowtai Voidwalker is creating like a exile graveyard hand. Every card in this deck is absolutely like the best card in that color format for sure. Like you have Ragavan, Seasoned Pyromancer, Fury, top cards in red. You know, honestly, I wouldn't say the top cards in red. I think like still like call me what you will, but I think it's Monastery Swiftspear and Dragon's Rage Channeler are like the most useful in like aggro cards in red that are still like, because I mean, okay, let's see here. So what I think too, you can on turn one, essentially you can thought seize somebody and play 2 griefs by evoking them, and that's 3 cards from the hand. Plus that's 2 big creatures on the board, and then turn 2 after they've, you know, who knows, and then bouncing back a grief from the graveyard. So like playing Feign Death, Undying Malice, stuff like that. So bringing something back out of the graveyard, that is just double whammy. Like when I play against Rakdos Scam, you could find yourself like having no cards in hand by turn 3, and then your board state is going to be devastated by Fury. And I really think Fury is the problem in the deck, because Fury puts the deck over the edge where the deck takes out your hand. The deck can cheat out a big creature quickly that takes things from your hand. Essentially, Fury is taking that other end where what you had is like a discard interaction deck, and then swing with a big creature, swing with Dowtai, and then bring out Ragavan to scam from the top of people's decks. If you're playing burn, like using Ragavan to cast burn spells on somebody is really fun, I will say. However, I think the problem is Fury. Because, yeah, that 4 damage and then having that double strike as well. And then if somebody like says, hey, this Fury's got to go, which Fury's got to go, Lightning Bolt, you know, hard block and Fury with something, and then somebody Undying Malice and Feign Death being swung on it, and then you have Fury back, except now it's a 4/4, and because it wipes your board state when it enters the battlefield, on its next turn, as soon as it can attack and deal that double strike, the way this deck is, it annihilates. It is a steamroller. And like I said, having like play tested it so many times, I've play tested against everything I run, and the only thing that like keeps it in check is Boros Burn, but just that. It's not like Boros Burn like annihilates it. It's an even matchup almost. You know what? I wouldn't even say that. Like you need like everything to go perfect for you, and then to have a couple hangups. They need to have hangups. That's the only thing. Like the deck, the Rakdos Scam is so consistent that if it doesn't have like a couple hangups and you don't have perfection, basically, it's gonna win. It has an answer for everything, and it is overpowered. It's very different than things I've seen like in the recent years in Magic, to be honest. And you know, I really think Fury, that evoke, those elementals, Fury just stands out. It is too much. I don't think grief is as bad. I think grief is kind of funny, you know. I know people don't like you having to discard things, and that is kind of cheap and scammy, but it goes along with the deck where, like, okay, like that direction is kind of like a low play style, I will say. I kind of admire it. I've used it myself, like messing in people's hands and getting rid of that so you can swing in. I have a black stompy deck. I kind of run that way. However, um, this deck, anybody, like, there's no arguing. Like, I'm not being a whiner here. I'm just saying, like, this deck is a cut above. Like, everything you see. And my favorite deck right now in the meta, and I don't even play it. I don't play the deck. But my favorite deck, I have to say, like, for going to a tournament, I think Mono Green Tron. But Mono Green Tron down here, Rakdos Scam, I mean, it is dominating the format. And that deck is a problem. And something needs to be done. And when people have, like, a problem with the spells for one black where you give something Undying, it comes out of the graveyard with the counter, and then you get that double whammy of, like, grief coming back with a counter, and you discard another hand that I choose. So that is not good at all. But those cards are not the problem. Honestly, like, I found myself, like, it was grief. In the comments, anybody that's come up against this or play tested it online or owns the deck and plays it in paper, chime in. And honestly, like, if I lost to this, it would be from Fury every time. Like, yeah, the scamming my win cons and taking my good cards out of my hand, that kind of sucked. But every time the finishing blow, the thing would be like, you have devastated me, like, beyond, would be Fury with, like, a 4/4 Fury with double strike. That would be the killer, as it were. And just, like, my Boros burn deck is designed to burn fast and just kill, but also to not run out of gas. So it can go that extra mile and push forward. And even against my burn, I found myself, like, be like, oh my god, like, this deck just keeps coming because it's got four of those elementals. It's got 4 of those Furies. It's got 4 of those griefs. I mean, honestly, like, trying to think of, if you want to make, like, the worst, like, just go ahead and add, like, a Solitude in there, like, splash some white. But I don't think the deck would be as efficient. Yeah, I just think something needs to be addressed in that deck, and I think Fury is the thing that needs to be addressed. Because Fury, primarily, like, Modern consists of, like, low-cost cards. And by low cost, I mean casting cost. So Fury in the game is, like, it's like a baboon with a gun. You know what I mean? Like, we're all, like, playing a game here, and, like, all of a sudden, like, oh my god, baboon with a gun. Like, that's Fury. Like, throwing it into this game where low cast creatures, where Dragon's Rage Channeler, like, means nothing. Like, DRC, like, stands no chance. Like, it has made Dragon's Rage Channelers, goblins, you name it, any, like, type of, like, low cast cost, like, low to the ground creature, Fury makes it irrelevant. And then every deck, like I was telling my wife, I said, every deck is going to become like Rakdos Scam, Rakdos Evoke, because the certain cards in it make it worthwhile to, like, honestly, like, splash those colors into something. Like Fury, after this tournament, I think everybody will splash red because Fury, like, needs to answer to Fury. But then in Rakdos Scam, when you play Fury and take out Fury, like, say I was playing my Prowess deck, I had play Fury, target my opponent's Fury, and then that Fury goes in the graveyard, but then they cast Undying spell on it, and it comes out of the graveyard as a 4/4 with double strike. So even to like set up a deck to like answer to it, it's not just Rakdos Scam. Because look at the format right now. Like, tell me this deck is not dominating the format, and it really is not a very inspired deck. It's not like a Twiddle Storm or something. It's like a very like intuitive, inspired deck. I just think like with all the like intuitive and like interactive, creative decks out there, the format like it's almost like laughable that this deck, which is to me just like the best creatures like put together in the colors, like creating like a a poop storm basically of epic proportions. If anybody wonders why I don't swear on my channel, it's because I have little kids that watch my channel. Like I have nieces and nephews, I think, watch some of my videos, and they're young, so I don't want to be in trouble. Uncle Rich doesn't need any of that. But yeah, it's a poop storm, kids. That's what this is. And the reason I say that is just like I say, like you're either discarding or your board state's being devastated by Fury. And I don't know if the cards were intended to create something like that or not, but they certainly have. And yeah, we're like I said, we're plodding along today. We're working on our projects, but at the same time, we are just keeping our eyes right on the computer and watching this modern ban list. So, what are your thoughts? I thought when I knew Rakdos Scam was going to win the Pro Tour, I mean, the Timmy in me was like, oh, like, Mono Green Tron, save us from this evil thing. But no, in my heart of hearts, I was like, Rakdos Scam is too good of a deck to not just annihilate this tournament. And, really, like, if something's not done, it's going to be like an amalgamation where every deck will become like a Rakdos Scam deck to one degree or another. Like you'll see people making like under $400 like Rakdos Scam, like, and I don't know what they'll forego in it. You know, maybe like a land based something, but everybody will be running Grief and Fury and the Bowmasters. You know, just like the One Ring. Again, like, I still say that's not ban worthy. I think, like, Bowmasters is up for consideration, as it should be. Because, again, like, it's one of those cards that's like an answer to itself. So it becomes a thing where, like, oh, I have, like, a black deck that does this thing, but this card must go in there. Like, Ragavan, I haven't played Ragavan. I've actually, like, softened on Ragavan, where I'm like, hey, not every deck that's red should play Ragavan. But with the cards in the format, like almost like every deck that plays red should certainly be playing some of the Fury, if Fury's not banned. So Fury's going to be one of those cards where you're going to see it everywhere. Fury, Fury, Fury. I bet you'll see it like as much as Lightning Bolt, just because of like this Pro Tour, the way it interacted, like even in Boros Burn, like you could justify like running like a couple of those, like run a playset of Fury and 2 Solitude in the sideboard for good measure. And I think Fury is like the big dog of the elementals. So if you cut out Fury, the other elementals are balanced. So then in Rakdos Scam, the trade-off is going to be like your opponent maintains a board state. So like you'll have to cut some of those creature cards to get more interaction and more removal. You know, maybe Lightning Bolt, stuff like that, like beyond Fatal Push. So push that creature base down, create a thing where the removal is like everybody else does it. Like if we're not running Rakdos Scam, we're not running Fury, we remove with Lightning Bolts, Lava Darts, Gut Shots, things like that. You know, blue has their removal. Green, target creature gets +3/+3, then fights target creature you don't control. White, exile. Blue, return to hand, put under, the fourth card down in the library, those kind of things. So Rakdos Scam is getting the milk for free, as it were, where if we don't play Fury, we have to remove creatures. We can't just annihilate a board state. And you will just see it everywhere. It's not that it isn't common in every deck anyways, but this Rakdos Scam thing, like, the only card I can think that would nerf this deck, if I had to pick just one single card from the deck needs to lose Fury. And maybe I'm wrong, but I think Fury is the problem. Because I think, like, that gives, like, a leg up to the modern creature base, which is going to be low to the ground. So yeah, I just think Fury, we'll let that one go. Just my thoughts is Fury, I think, is the one that needs to go. And I think Rakdos Scam is not the most inspired deck. I think it's cool. I've definitely made decks similar to it, but that Evoke thing is just too much. Like, I don't know. Something needs to be done. Not with Evoke. I think Evoke is okay because the cost of exiling something from your hand is a cost. All the same. It's not a free spell. It's a cost. All the same. But together, the amalgamation of Grief and Fury. And like I said, chime in, anybody. In my experience playing against this, it is Fury that closes out the game almost every time. Like, Fury is the one where it's like, abandon all hope, ye that enter here. Because Fury has entered the board, and in Rakdos Scam, you're scared to remove Fury. Even if you have 2 lightning bolts in hand, Fury pops back as a 4/4. So it is way too overpowered. They should unban things. The things that were taken from Storm in Magic should be unbanned. Because Storm wasn't like this. Storm was great. I love Storm. I miss it. Wizards said no to Storm. But then this is like I don't know. I don't know what this is. It's like making everybody play with, like, bows and arrows, and then giving the Rakdos Scam is like, we all have bows and arrows, which are good and well and all that, and stylish. But this is like a smart bomb system or something, like a robo droid killer. And yeah, I mean, even me, like, if I'm going to keep playing, like, modern, I think, like, if you're going to play and, like, pay to play places, you should probably play Rakdos Scam if that's what you're going to be playing. Because that's the best. And it is, like I said, a tier above. It's almost in its own class in Modern, where it's in its own class. It really is. It's unique in the format. And something needs to change with it, because it's very toxic. And it could really ruin the format. But, there's too much hype about the One Ring still, where people are in Bowmasters. Like, leave Bowmasters alone, I say. If something needs to be banned, the one thing that should be is Fury, because that is the biggest problem, I think. Thanks for joining me. I've got a buddy coming over pretty soon, I think, so I gotta get all my geeks cleaned up and get going here. So you guys have a good one, and so anxious to see what this ban list is and see if I should buy some Grief or not. Buy Grief. How would I buy Grief? Huh? Doesn't Grief come for free?